Former House Speaker Martin Romualdez asserts he will not allow himself to be the scapegoat in the flood control scandal. Good morning, I'm Atty. Karen Jimeno, and this is At the Forefront. Former House Speaker Martin Romualdez speaks up about the flood control scandal. In a video message posted on Facebook, the Leyte 1st District Representative asserts he will not allow himself to be a scapegoat in the controversy. He also asserts anomalous flood control projects cannot be blamed on a single individual or a single branch of government. Meanwhile, the Office of the Ombudsman seeks to prevent Romualdez from flying to Singapore, calling him a potential flight risk. To help us analyze these developments, we'll be speaking with a political analyst, Dr. Froilan Calilung. Good morning, Dr. Froilan.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Atty. Karen. Good morning to our televiewers, and good morning. Thank you for having me again on the show.
Thank you for your time, Dr. Froilan. Let's start first with the Office of the Ombudsman asking the Sandigan Bayan for a precautionary whole departure order against Romualdez. Ombudsman Jesus Crispin Remulla opposed the overseas trip of Romualdez to Singapore. Do you think that Martin Romualdez is also a flight risk like Zaldico?
Well, with the allegations that actually have been pointing to him since the early ongoings of this flood control scandal, and the evidences that may actually be filed against him, I think there is a possibility along that line. And I think the government right now is trying to exercise precautionary measures so that the same things what happened to Zaldico will not happen here. Because if that will be the case, then that will further complicate and make this investigation a little bit slower again. Because if ever Zaldico will be going back to the Philippines and Speaker Romualdez is actually here, that will shed really a lot of light into this investigation, and that will really lead us further towards the understanding of the truth. And hopefully, we'll be able to uncover it and know exactly who is the mastermind in this billion peso fiasco. So I think it's a good thing that the government is actually keeping up with this particular order, so that he will not be leaving the country. You know, Atty. Karen, everything in politics is about timing, and we think right now with former Speaker Martin Romualdez saying that he kept silent for a long time, which should be given. But then again, the timing right now as to why he made the statements, I think, were precipitated by three reasons. Number one, the arrest and the possible departure here to the Philippines of Zaldico. Practically one of the reasons why he spoke to actually preempt any further dragging of his name into the controversy. Secondly, the oral arguments that were happening yesterday in the Supreme Court, particularly when the Supreme Court mentioned that the funds, the unprogrammed funds, were actually monumental. That's the term that they used now. And thirdly is the whole departure, or not really the whole departure, but the travel outlook that was given by Crispin Remulla, the Ombudsman, yesterday. I think just precipitated him to actually speak and tell us his mind regarding this, which I feel is really good, because at least somehow, if he will be able to tell on in the investigations, that will really shed light to this issue.
Okay, so just to recap, you're saying that you think yung pagsalita ni former Speaker Martin Romualdez was triggered by three things. One is the arrest of Zaldico, the reported arrest of Zaldico in the Czech Republic. And then second, your oral arguments at Supreme Court yesterday, where the Supreme Court called the unprogrammed appropriations monumental. And then third would be what is the third one? Yung sa
the lookout order given
the precautionary whole departure order of the Ombudsman. But do you think may relation din to doon sa sinabi na rin recently ng Ombudsman that they will be pursuing plunder cases against former Speaker Martin Romualdez, and that they also sought the freezing of the assets of former Speaker Martin Romualdez?
Yes, actually, everything actually is interconnected, and I think what the speaker felt here is that when they were what he thought was that they were on the same page and that they're technically on the same boat is starting to disintegrate at this moment. And Attorney Karen, it's all about self-preservation. And when he felt probably that he is not being protected, just like Zaldico was dropped down like a hot potato, maybe that is what he's thinking right now. So before things will go out of hand and before he will be very much gone and implicated and become tagged as the mastermind by the government, he is already trying to make the statements to give the public the idea or the perception that he is not the only one, and that a heist, no, I call it a heist, like the flood control scandal of this magnitude, cannot be the work of only one man alone, and that he is alluding to somebody higher than him. And he made mention about the command responsibility, and I think it's already giving allusions here to his very own cousin, the president.
Since you're mentioning that, Professor Froilan, that he seems to be mentioning his own cousin, the president, we'll play an excerpt of Congressman Romualdez's statement from what he posted on Facebook or social media yesterday.
Yeah, actually.
Professor, let's listen to this.
I was the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, but the House of Representatives is only one part of the branch of government, the legislature. The national budget is not conceived, executed, implemented, bidded out, supervised, and completed by one congressman or even by Congress alone, and certainly not by the Speaker of the House. I want to make this simple and clear. The national budget does not depend on just one person. The budget does not begin in the House. It begins in the executive.
Okay, so Professor Froilan, meron siyang zinero in. It begins in the executive, and we all know that the executive is led by the president, and that's his cousin, President Bongbong Marcos. So is he pointing to his cousin?
I think the response to the president is actually very, very clear at this point. And yun nga lang, kailangan natin kasing himayin, Attorney Karen, yung binabanggit niya about his position as a speaker and about the Congress and what they do. Kasi mukhang hindi naging malinaw sa kanya, no? Kung ano talaga yung ideal. Kasi ang nilatag niya sa atin sa kanyang statements, yung ideal na ginagawa ng Kongreso. Pero ang kailangan nating malaman ng taong bayan dito is ano ba talaga yung nangyayari? Kasi kung pwedeng sabihin natin na ito yung ginagawa ng Congress, they prepare the budget, tama naman yun, they based on the NEP. Pero maliwanag kasi, it's very glaring na nung dumating yung NEP sa kanya, ang laki ng pagkakaiba doon sa naging gaan. And if you are the Speaker of the House, even if you are not a member of the Appropriations Committee, this is already a red flag technically. And being a congressman, if you are really a dignified gentleman from the lower house, you could really exactly pinpoint na meron talagang pagkakamali. And I really don't understand, and I cannot fathom the idea that these members of the Appropriations Committee will actually do these things in their own accord or in their own decision without any kind of supervision and at least agreement coming from him, because that will tantamount to direct insubordination if they will do that. And syempre hindi basta-basta gagalaw yan kung hindi alam ng speaker. So I think it really does not hold water what statements is telling us here. And instead of making the public know that he is not guilty or that he is spotless in this particular fiasco, mukhang mas lalo niyang binaon yung kanyang sarili kasi naging dead end. Hindi mo po pwedeng sabihin na wala kang alam. Pag sinabi mo yun, ibig sabihin wala kang ginagawa. Bilang isang speaker, you're not being informed, so nasa ng mandato mo, no? And kung halimbawa, binabanggit naman niya na yun nga sa Tacloban, wala siyang inilagay doon na mga projects. I think Martin Romualdez, being a seasoned politician, is not going to be that ignorant, no, na ilalagay niya yung mga proyekto doon sa mismong balwate niya.
Okay. So you're
Napakarami
saying,
niyang
Professor
kaalyado.
Froilan, na hindi parang walang basis yung sinasabi niya na hindi niya alam or wala siyang alam. But to the extent that he's pointing to the executive branch or to the president, because in another part of his speech, he said that if the allegation is that there was systematic corruption in flood control implementation, then the public should ask the obvious question: where does implementation actually happen? Definitely not in the session hall of the House of Representatives. So is he emphasizing the accountability of the executive branch?
Yeah, but then again, we're talking here about the budget now. And you remember that the Congress, by virtue of their constitutional mandate, they really have the so-called power of the purse. And syempre, wala ka naman i-disperse, wala naman talaga i-implement sa baba kung hindi mo naman talaga yan create in the first place at kung hindi mo inalaw na maipasa. So yung paghuhugas kamay dito, no, at pagtutuan at paglalaglagan magiging maliwanag in this case. Because para sa akin, it's like an unholy trinity, between the president, Martin Romualdez, and of course, Saldico. They are all finger pointing out at one another, saying that they do not have anything to do with it, that they are not supposed to be implicated. Pero I think, I really have a serious contemplations on this na hindi magaganap ang ganito kalaking pagnanakaw kung wala talagang maayos na coordination between these three people. And I really would want to echo out the sentiments of many of our countrymen. Kung ano man yung nasa isip nila ngayon, matagal nang mayroong agam-agam ang ating mga kababayan ko sino talaga yung nasa likod nito. Yun nga lang, kinakailangan ma-validate at ma-confirm ng mga magaganapang investigations na sana masimulan na naman dahil sa mga binigay na statements na to ni Martin Romualdez. Malaman natin kung sino talaga yung mastermind. Kasi parang lumalabas dito, yung master tsaka yung mind, maaaring dalawang tao, no? Bukod pa yung hands na nasa ibaba.
Okay, at may hands pa. Okay, so Dr. Froilan, since you mentioned this unholy trinity where you said, hindi lang to isang tao, it sounds like or it looks like it's the executive and in this case the legislative also, and you're talking about kailangan alam din niya ni Speaker Martin when it comes to what Congress is doing. So kung sakaling totoo na merong involvement ang President based on what former Speaker Martin Romualdez is implying when he keeps mentioning the executive, former lawmaker Zaldico linked the President explicitly before when he also released his own video on social media. If ever na i-clarify pa to ni former Speaker Martin Romualdez that he is referring to the President when he talks about the executive branch, what are the implications of this? But before you answer this question, let's take a short break. At the Forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the Forefront. We continue our conversation with political analyst Dr. Froilan Calilung. Dr. Froilan, former lawmaker Zaldico already linked the President to the flood control scandal when he also released his own video before. If ever former Speaker Martin Romualdez was referring to the President, or he clarifies this later on as referring to the President when he keeps mentioning the executive in the video he released yesterday, what would be implications of this, having two people from Congress already linking the President to the flood control scandal?
Well, this will really be a precarious and difficult position for the President, because for the longest time he gives us the impression, he gave us the impression that he is the one who unearthed this particular scandal. He brought it out in the open. And of course, with the allegations and fingers already now pointing at him, it becomes very clear that he tried to do this to actually come up with a preemptive mechanism to salvage himself, to free himself from any accountability. And that is quite problematic on his part, and we don't know what kind of damage control the powers could actually do to salvage that particular scenario from happening. Especially right now, that I think in the coming days, Martin Romualdez will be more vocal, and I think he is going to mention the name of the president in the coming days, especially now that there are cases that will be filed against him. There's already this lookout bulletin, among others, and he knows already that from the inside that there are several people who used to be aligned with him or used to actually support him may now already be turning their backs against him. And so at the end of the day, Attorney Karen, it's really all about self-preservation.
Okay, so you're making this fearless forecast na former Speaker Martin Romualdez will eventually name the president in the coming days. But there's currently a one-year ban rule to impeach President Bongbong Marcos. What do you think will happen? Can this trigger another impeachment complaint once the ban lifts, but that's a year from now? How will this affect the trust and approval ratings? Ano yung magiging impact sa presidente and to his administration?
Well, the trust and approval ratings are already plummeting even before the name of the president will be dragged. And if yun nga, kung talagang magiging maliwanag na talagang madadawit ang kanyang pangalan dito at kung talagang lilitaw sa mga legal testimonies dito sa mga sworn statements, especially by Zaldico and by Speaker Romualdez, yung kanyang pangalan, it will really erode further yung kanyang political capital. And yeah, if we're going to talk about impeachment, it will be done. It could be done next year. But then again, kung titignan natin, medyo mahirap na rin gawin yun, especially na less than a year, we'll be having the elections. So I think it's going to be quite difficult for him to actually be impeached. Pero siguro ang magiging resultant effect nito, yung kanyang political capital will really be eroded, and whoever it is that is going to be endorsing to be his successor will really find it very, very difficult to actually mount a victory. I think this is going to be how the people will actually try to make him accountable if in case he's really involved in this big scandal.
Okay, so Dr. Froilan, you're saying that probably this won't have an impact on President Bongbong Marcos finishing his term kasi malabo ang impeachment, lalo na kung meron tong one-year ban rule. But what the effect would be on his endorsement power for 2028 elections. And
Unless of course, unless there will be an extra constitutional mechanism in place. Like, for example, another revolution, maybe in the offing, we don't know. If this will really trigger the people to go out in the street and mount a good ouster of the president, which of course may not be probable also because there are several segments of the society also that are not in favor of Sara Duterte emerging as the president if in case the president will be ousted. So I think it's going to be a wait and see thing here for 2028. But definitely this will cast a lot of negative impact or negative effect on the president.
Dr. Froilan, Romualdez also mentioned former Senate President Chis Escudero and Zaldico in his video yesterday. Let's listen to this.
Records would show that I did not participate in those meetings and I was not privy to what exactly transpired during the deliberations. However, two people were instrumental in making those budget decisions, Chis Escudero and Zaldico. And once the budget becomes law, the work of implementing flood control projects, or any project for that matter, is solely within the purview of the executive, including the DPWH, certainly not by legislators.
Okay, Dr. Froilan, so as you can see, minention na naman yung executive as being accountable, or yung implementation is within the purview of the executive, including the DPWH. But dalawang tao ang minention niya from the legislative branch. former Senate President Cheese Escudero and Zaldico. So with respect to Zaldico, meron ng mga na-file na cases currently. With Senate President Cheese Escudero, wala pa. What do you think would be the implication now that former Speaker Martin Romualdez has also mentioned these two names, including former Senate President Cheese Escudero?
Well, I think this is more of a retaliation that I think came up too late. I remember, I think sometime October of last year, Senate President Jesus Escudero came up with a privilege speech and directly naming the former speaker as one of the architects of the flood control scandal. And I think right now is when the speaker is actually giving his response to that, now by directly alluding to the idea as well that the former Senate President is also implicated in the scandal. But the thing that we need to understand here, of course, and I think the reason is being in the bicameral conference committee, the House Speaker actually is not really part of it. But it doesn't necessarily mean na wala talaga siya ritong kinalaman. Kasi yung kanyang tao na si Zaldico, who is working very closely with, I really do understand and I believe, by all means, they're actually communicating and they pinapaalam sa kanya lahat ng nangyayari. At kung sakali man na talagang hindi pinaalam sa kanya, being the House Speaker, how could you not see and how could you not even scrutinize the budget that was laid down before you or that was actually approved as a part of the GAA ganun-ganun lang. So I think yung paghuhugas ng kamay maliwanag pero mismo mga kaalyado niya, kung maalala natin, binanggit ang pangalan ni Speaker Romualdez. You remember Congresswoman Luistro, si Jervin Luistro, in one of this meetings or gatherings that they have in Bawon, Batangas, ano bang binanggit niya? Kaya may ayuda dahil kay Speaker, kaya may AH dahil kay Speaker, kaya may tupad dahil kay Speaker. So, in short, lahat ito na nangyayari, especially with the funds of the people and the funds of the government, is within the understanding and within the purview of the Speaker. So for him to say that it's only the work of, or everything is being given to the President, I think medyo hindi rin naman tama.
Okay.
So
And finally,
I think for this to really work, kinakailangan talaga orchestrated lahat.
Okay, and Dr. Froilan, finally, the former speaker also asserted, and this was near the end of his speech, that he will not be the scapegoat in the flood control scandal. Here's another part of his statement.
I will not allow myself to be turned into the scapegoat so that others who are actually accountable can walk away clean. If this is a political play to push me out and close the story, tarnishing my name and my reputation, then I'm telling everyone now, I will not go quietly and I will not go alone. I will not be the fall guy for other people's corruption.
Okay, and Dr. Froilan, this statement is on top of what he said, that he knows many things about this current administration, quote unquote. That's what he said. And do you think this is a veiled threat when he says, I will not go alone? I know many things about this current administration. Do you think this is a veiled threat against President Bongbong Marcos, that he will implicate the President and his administration? Kasi napansin ko rin yung speech niya is in English. Normally, kung gusto mong kausapin yung taong bayan, Tagalog na lang, no? Pero sino ba yung target audience niyo dito? Do you think this is, like I said, a veiled threat?
Well, I think, Attorney Karen, this is a prelude. This statement here is a prelude to some statements that will be forthcoming. I think there will be more bombs that the speaker will be issuing out in the coming days, and it's just an opening salvo. No? But the point is clear here. No? He doesn't want to be the scapegoat. In short, if he will go down, he will bring down with him several people, especially those whom he felt do not care for him anymore, or who have left him or deserted him in this very trying moment of his life. And so the things the things that he knew and the things that he actually know at the moment are the very core of what will be his statements in the forthcoming days. And I think this is something that the president should be very aware of and should be very, very wary about and very conscious as well as how they could actually control the narrative to their favor.
Yeah,
So
and,
it's not a lot of other things to come in the coming days,
Yeah.
Atty. Karen.
And Dr. Froilan, since we're out of time, last question ko na lang to. Since Congressman Sandro Marcos also worked closely with former Speaker Martin Romualdez, do you think there's a risk that Congressman Sandro Marcos will also be implicated?
Yes, yes. I think there's a big possibility for that. Remember, I think it was Congressman Ege Erice who pointed out that if the president is there and kung parang sinasabi Congressman Erice, mas madaling magnakaw kapag yung tito mo yung may hawak ng ganito at yung tatay mo naman yung may hawak ng ganito, mas madaling mag-orchestrate, ano. And yeah, I think definitely, when the cake crumbles, and exactly what we're seeing right now, talagang magkakalaglagan na yan. And to us, being the Filipino people who deserves the justice and what we think is due to us, especially the truth, I think this is a positive development for us na finally malalaman na natin yung katotohanan. And I think this will be also quite problematic for Senate During, for example, Pato Lacson, na paano niya ito hihilutin, paano niya ito gagawin. When in fact, for the longest time, they're trying to really cover up. It's very obvious. Pero right now, that the speaker something out in the open with guns to blazing, it's going to be very, very hard for them to maneuver.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Dr. Froilan Calilung, at abangan natin kung marami pang lalabas na bombs, as you said.
Abang-abang, Karen.
Thank you. Former Speaker Martin Romualdez has broken his silence about the flood control scandal. How will this affect the way the government is handling the controversy? And will Romualdez make good on his threat to implicate other officials? As the public demands answers, the truth test now lies in whether authorities will pursue the truth, wherever it leads, and hold everyone involved accountable for the misuse of public funds. Be informed, be insightful of the news. I'm Atty. Karen Jimeno. Always stay at the forefront.